So I was just reading, I guess it was yesterday really. Russia, since March or so, has been dumping its U.S. Treasury bond holdings. Not just a little bit. 20% of what it holds, it has dumped. 1/5 of its Treasury holdings have been dumped in about 2 months. And the other interesting side of this is that we have our Federal Reserve telling us all this quantitative easing and, 80 whatever it was billion dollars a month they were pushing out to buy bonds and whatnot. That's what this whole easing was for. They're the ones who are buying it, not other countries. You see, it used to be China was first in buying our debt. Then it was Japan, second place. And then the Federal Reserve for a while was third place. That changed about 2 years ago. I mentioned this in at least a couple of videos. And now the Federal Reserve is number 1. China became number 2, Japan became number 3, etc. And that's changed, I think, even more so. I don't know that China is number 2 anymore. But we have the Fed saying twice now, we've taken $10 billion a month off of those purchases, so we're winding down, right? Or as they call tapering, we're tapering off those bond purchases. 80 billion a month is now $70 billion a month, is now $60 billion a month. They did it twice, $10 billion a pop. So now they're telling us, the Fed, we've taken essentially $20 billion off of that. We're tapering off of that, 80 billion. So we're down to $60 billion a month. In other words, they're still printing $60 billion a month, every month, to continue buying our debt back. So here's the little sideshow, little sleight of hand. Okay, places like Russia, who just dumped 20 billion in 2 months. They're not the only one dumping our debt, by the way. All of a sudden, there's a mysterious buyer out of freaking Belgium. Not just a buyer, a huge, enormous buyer of our debt springs up simultaneously with all these bond sell-offs of our bonds, Treasury bonds, and the Federal Reserve saying we're tapering, we're going to taper some more, we're going to, we're not buying back as much. I don't know if that's supposed to trick the world into saying, hey, the world's buying our debt again. I don't know what that nonsense is. But simultaneously, you have another buyer come on scene that was never there before, buying significant amounts of this debt. I'm talking $100 and something billion, I believe, worth of Treasury bonds. That is not 10 or 20 billion dollars. $100 and something billion worth of bonds. And I said, maybe more than that, actually. I don't remember the exact number. But whatever it was like a half of somewhere around half or something like that, or a third half of Belgium's entire GDP. So no nation on the face of the earth could even afford to take a third or half of their GDP and say, let's go buy some bonds. There's no such thing. That money is gone. You need it for the country. You need it to keep going. You don't have that kind of excess money. You're not like filthy rich as a country and you just got hundreds of billion dollars lying around not being used. Let's go buy some Treasury bonds from the United States. No, absolutely not. So what does that mean? Well, it means two things, actually. The first thing it means is that the whole tapering, we're tapering $10 billion a month today, we're tapering next month $10 billion, right? We're reining in our quantitative easing. No. It means that that's not exactly happening at all, and it's just happening via a different method. Someone else, backdoor type of thing, is buying this debt, and it could be the Fed itself or one of the too big to fail banks, and they're getting funneled the money somehow to buy these bonds, because no small nation like Belgium in their right mind would buy any country's Treasury bonds in that type of amount in value. I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars. Come on. Not going to happen. So that's the sleight of hand. That somebody else is now stepping in. As the Fed is backing out, someone else is stepping in, and not only stepping in, upping it. Because if we said, 2 years ago, or whenever this exactly kicked in, the first amount of bond buying and quantitative easing, and where they, decided we're just going to buy. Remember at one time it was 40 billion a month, then it was higher and higher, and it was 80 billion. If someone has purchased $100 and something billion worth of bonds in a short period of time, while the other party that's selling those bonds is saying, hey, the Federal Reserve was the one that was buying up most of the bonds, or they've totally slowed down, things are looking good, the economy's looking better, so they're going to slow down those purchases and let the rest of the world step in, and good times, good sign, everything's good. When in reality, you've just changed people who were buying the bonds. So now it's not the Federal Reserve in the limelight showing everyone, hey, it's us. They're saying we've now taken $20 billion a month off of that, and we're going to taper some more. We're not done, guys. Like we said, this is going to work. We're going to taper even more until literally we get down to not having to taper at all. And then while that's happening, simultaneously, another party that you're not supposed to look at, you're not supposed to know, is buying every little difference that they're taking off, every 10 billion a month. This other party has taken over, and not only are they taking over what the Federal Reserve has basically said that they, for example, if they've said they've taken off $20 billion a month now, that they used to have, they've tapered 20 billion a month off, so now we're only doing 60 billion instead of 80 billion. There's another party making up the difference. And not only are they making up the difference based on the chart that I saw, but they're going even more. So it's as if we ain't spending $80 billion a month, Federal Reserve, we're spending 100 or 100 plus billion dollars a month to buy it back. We're just showing you what the Federal Reserve's doing, and then we've got our little club members, or in one particular instance in Belgium, this club member taking over the slack for us, so to speak. So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And who's to say that the Federal Reserve isn't just printing money to give to that entity to then go buy the bonds, just because they can? I mean, they've printed trillions of dollars over the last few years. And to think about it, well, you say, well, how do you know that? How do you know for sure? What's our national debt? A few years ago, it was $9 trillion. It's now doubled. It's $18 trillion. The money didn't just, it's not just a number that came up and someone wrote it down. The money had to be created. Even if it was digital dollars to pay for things, buy those bonds, whatever, it was created. So when I hear these numbers about, oh, we're buying back $80 billion a month. Okay, let's just round that off to $100 billion a month. And in 10 months, that would be $1 trillion. Another 10 months would be another $1 trillion. So that's 2 years almost, $2 trillion. And technically, since there's 12 months a year, $2.4 trillion would be created in 2 years. So wait a minute. 2 years, 4 years, 6 years would be 2, 4, 6, 7, or 8 trillion. We're getting close, right? Because we were at 9 trillion. 9 plus 9 is 18. Just last year, or whatever, it was 17. So it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If we were basically printing $100 billion a month to continually pay for what is needed in this country. Because that's just about how much the national debt has been going up. And it appears to be going up exponentially. Why? Because you have less working class people paying the tab, the taxes, etc. Therefore, the government's income to service that debt, as well as keep the government itself running and paid. And of course, as you've seen, like this company that Obama gave $1.2 billion to as one of the healthcare centers, Affordable Care Act centers, in which they said, I did the video yesterday, whatever. What is it? I don't know the exact amount that they're getting, but every time an employee is hired, they get a little kickback fund piece from the government. So they're hiring. Hey, good, man. Great, you're hiring. That's what we needed. That's what, hey, Obamacare said they were going to create jobs too. This is a prime example. Good job, Obamacare. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now that all these people, and it's not a whole lot, it's like 1,500 people, are being hired, what are they doing? I mean, they got to work for the money. And as it turns out from the whistleblower who actually works at that facility, said, our goal is to hopefully process 2 Obamacare applicants per month, per employee. That's our goal. So you're working 40 hours a week times the whole month, so about 4 times that amount, 160 hours roughly a month, on the taxpayer's dime, because that's who's paying this company. They got a contract with Obama, $1.2 billion, apparently. That's a enormous amount of money for a company that only has a few thousand, 1,500 people currently, and that might just be at this one location, and there's 3 other states where they're opening up more locations like this. So let's just say at the end of the day, there's going to be 5,000 employees. At a potential taxpayer cost of $1.2 billion? Where is that number justified? And secondly, more importantly, as I said, these people have a goal of processing 2 applicants per month. And then the whistleblower said, you know, a lot of times they can't even meet that. As a matter of fact, there's been weeks straight in a row in which they didn't even get an application. And we're all told, refresh your computer screen to see if any new applications come in so you can go process them. Hit the refresh button, but you can only do it per management once every 10 minutes. Now let me tell you what that's about. Because I work at a company that sells phone systems. And before they became this company, they all worked at another place. Mostly the sales team. They worked at a different place together. Most of the sales team know each other, and they worked there for years. So they were at a whole different company, and that company would give them leads that were good leads on their computer screen. So they would log in, and they called it, rather than refreshing it, they called it tickle. We would tickle the screen. We'd tickle it. I don't know why that term came up to be, but it meant the same thing. So they would tickle the screen, and every time they would tickle it, are there any new leads? Any of them would see it. So if you basically refreshed your screen, and you sat there, refresh, right at your computer, you ain't got nothing to do right now. Hey, I need some new clientele. I need to make some extra sales and commission. Let me see what the list has, right? Tickle, 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 tickle. Oh, there's one. Grab it. Assign it to myself. Bam. And if you did that quick, it's assigned to you. It goes off the screen for everybody else because now it's assigned to you. But when it wasn't assigned to anyone, it was a free-for-all. Take it. So everyone's at their computer. They told me this. Everyone's at their computer. Refresh, refresh, or tickle, tickle, tickle. And it got to the point where they weren't supposed to tickle that frequently. They had to wait a certain amount of time. And so anyways, this is kind of like that. This is what it's reminding me of, in a sense. Refresh. But don't do it every second. Do it every 10 minutes. And the reason, I know the reason why is because, hey, we've got 1,500 employees here. If all of you are sitting there refresh, 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 you're not going to give everybody else the opportunity. You may be really fast with that mouse click, and as soon as you see it, you may snatch it up. And next thing you know, Billy Bob over there has gotten 3 in a single day, when his quota is really 2 per month. He's gotten 3 in a single day because he's getting his little bonus too when he signs people up. But Billy Bob, we got 1,500 employees. So what they realize is if you do it once per 10 minutes and you got 1,500 people, it's going to constantly be refreshed when you got 1,500 people, right? It's going to constantly be refreshed, but not by the same people because everyone's having to wait 10 minutes. That way it gets everyone a nice fair chance to, maybe you'll get lucky when it's your 10 minutes and you hit that click button. Maybe you'll be lucky and there's a applicant right there. So the bottom line is that this whole thing is a fraud. They're still printing money out of control. It hasn't changed anything and won't change anything. And if you're too stupid to realize that gold and silver are the only thing that's going to protect you when this whole sinking ship goes down, I don't know what is. The other thing I want to mention, Bix Weir, I'm signed up to his newsletter, so I get his things. He says, so his title came across yesterday, something like, poof, 100 billion, I think that was the number, $100 billion in silver derivatives contracts went up in smoke just like that overnight. So I thought to myself, he's probably talking about the London PM fix going away. So I emailed, because he said it's for private subscribers only, and I'm not a private subscriber of his. I'm not paying for that service. So I emailed him to just say, hey, are you referring to the London PM fix? He says, yep, pretty much, and you know, there's more to it. I go into detail in my private subscription area. And I said, okay, well, hang on a second, you know, Bix, what's to stop if the derivatives contracts are set to use the London PM fix as their pricing mechanism, and that's going away completely, why can't they just go to the COMEX and say, hey, here whatever the COMEX price is at this time of day, whatever, we're going to use that price? I mean, these contracts are sold on the COMEX to begin with. And he said, he said, that's a good point you're bringing up, and I go over it in my private subscription area. Okay. So I left that alone for the time being, but it is interesting because that's, you know, I don't know the exact number, but he says $100 billion in derivatives, silver, specifically silver derivatives, are up in smoke just like that. I don't believe so. I believe they'll just change the pricing mechanism. It's not going to use the London PM fix anymore because it doesn't exist. So we'll just set the price at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on the COMEX. Whatever it is, that's the price. They're still manipulating it. As long as you hold the massive amount of paper contracts, you push the price where you want it. So one tool is taken away and they just switch it to another tool. Then that tool is taken away, then they switch it to another tool. The bottom line is, sooner or later, they're going to be out of tools. And that's about the time you better make sure you have your silver. Take care.